Welcome to Central Georgia Focus, the Ask Mayor Miller edition. I'm your host, Liz Fabian from the Murphy Center for Collaborative Journalism. Each month we sit down with Macon-Bibb County Mayor Lester Miller and ask your questions that you email to mercerccj@gmail.com. Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for joining us once again. Recently, the County Commission accepted the SPLOST results, including the ability to borrow up to $100 million against that money coming in to begin the projects for the 2025 collections. What are you most anxious to achieve first out of the gate?
Well, I think it's very obvious that we've been talking about paving the way. So roads is going to be the first amount of money going to be spent on roads. We have a lot of needs across the entire county. Commissioners have heard from their constituents, and of course I've heard from the entire county as well. So we're going to put a large part of that to start our roads program as much as we can get accomplished and as quick as we can get it done.
And StreetScan, the company that y'all hired to kind of do an assessment of all the roads, have they given you the priority list yet, or what's the time frame before the pavement hits the road?
Well, we're supposed to get the scan from them, I think, the second week in June. So we're waiting for that information. We've had some meetings behind the scenes with them to let them know what our parameters are. We did the bond money because we want to make sure we go ahead and get that money in and start the process instead of waiting for the collections, which will take several years.
And is there any time that we have to wait, like say June, we're getting into the hot months, is that like a no paving zone in terms of the heat? So do we have to wait till fall, or how is that going to work?
No, I don't think there's any restrictions on paving while it's hot. I mean, asphalt actually is when you've got to be heated anyway. I think if you have any restrictions, it would probably be on concrete or something, especially when it's cold. So I think we're in good shape for a while.
Now, recently you took the county commissioners on a tour of some potential SPLOST sites. The first stop was the jail. The media didn't get to go into that because of security reasons and such. So what did you learn from that tour of the jail?
Just wanted to kind of put our eyes on there for some commissioners that may have not had a chance to go in the jail. I visited several times myself prior to that, and of course as an attorney, I have, prior to being mayor, of course, so I used to go in the jail a lot to represent clients or for tours or for meetings, and not just in Macon-Bibb County, but all across the state of Georgia, whether it's a prison or a holding facility in a jail, to kind of compare what we have here with what people have elsewhere. So I think just really to kind of observe some things, to kind of keep that in our mind when we look at what we want to do regarding a new jail or expanded jail, et cetera.
And what do you think that the county commissioners saw? Was that did y'all see anything out of the order? I understand the grand jury was going in on their regular inspection recently.
Well, I don't know what they saw. I mean, I know that what you do see is that inmates can be destructive at times, and certainly they don't care about cleanliness. So I think you see a lot of trash that you could pick up will be right back there. You see some clogged toilets with people putting their shirts or their other towels there. Certainly you can see where part of the jail is a little newer than the other part of the jail, and that's something to take in consideration. So I've called a meeting with the sheriff and other folks this week, and we're going to be working on getting the RFP or RFQ out to decide what a new jail would cost, how long it would take, but more importantly, if there's a way in between, we can look at expanding the jail to separate those that are maybe more violent criminals and those that have mental health challenges, to separate them in a facility there on the campus. So I think those are all in play.
So it's not necessarily the building as much as it is maybe the inhabitants that keep trashing it and causing these problems?
I think it's some of all of it. I mean, it's not, certainly the building is not extremely old as far as jails are concerned. It's supposed to be a holding facility, not a prison. That's the difference. These are supposed to be people who are can't get out on a bond or have a hold for whatever reason or waiting to go to court. But some of it can be staffing or managerial, operational. Some of it could be inmate destruction. So we want to make sure that we take care of the needs. Just because someone's in jail and doesn't mean they don't need to be treated humanely. So we're going to make sure that we do that. But at the same time, we can't control their behavior all the times. And even at a brand new jail, if you're going to throw trash down, or if you're going to tear things up or stop toilets up, it's going to happen there. So that's not necessarily a new jail reason. But I just want people to know in Macon-Bibb County that we're going to protect both the officer and the inmate, and we're going to make some decisions very soon, utilizing some of the SPLOST dollars, which will be a lot better for everyone involved.
And what kind of feedback have you gotten about the potential site for a new correctional facility at 7th Street and Lower Poplar there?
I mean, nothing negative. I think everybody realizes that you're looking at a minimal $250 million, probably more like $400 million if you were to build a new jail. And certainly without a tax increase, that's not going to be possible, and you can't use all your SPLOST dollars for that. When people start doing priority to say, well, how can you build a new arena but you can't build a new jail? Well, think about it. I mean, who pays for that arena? People that are coming from out of town, paying a fee on top of that to book the facility. It's revenue based. Who's paying for a new jail? It's the taxpayers. It's raising your taxes. It's using your tax income. It's pulling it from other sources. Some of the SPLOST dollars, perhaps, but it's a different environment. Of course, you can't necessarily have people that want to invest into a jail as you do with an arena or something like that. But I think both can be accomplished. People are going to be quite surprised how we maximize the use of our funds that we have coming in.
And of course, also on that tour was the potential site for the new arena. Can you explain to us your thoughts on that, how it has to be located in a certain part of the parking lot to, keep the Coliseum open and active? So what are your thoughts about an arena?
Well, I will say that we had a great interest in our RFQ that we placed out there for qualified folks to be an owner's rep that would come in, and we'll be making announcements on that very soon. But there's only a couple spots on the property itself that you could put a new arena. Where the Chamber of Commerce was at, or back toward where Piedmont is at, or two locations that you could put it there. What you don't want to do is to tear down the Coliseum without having a new arena built, because you'll lose that revenue for 2 or 3, 4 years. At the same time, you'll lose those folks that came there. They'll go somewhere else and perhaps won't come back. So we want to be able to use the Coliseum during the meantime, while the new arena would be constructed if the commissioners decide to do that.
Is there a scenario where the Coliseum also stays?
I think there could be a scenario. I think Visit Macon's been doing some studies, feasibility studies, et cetera, to see how it could be used, what the cost would be to save it, and what could be modified in such a way to make it more modern but still usable. Right now, the jury's still out on that.
Right across from that site, across 2nd Street, you even showed us where the entrance would be off of 2nd Street to that portion of the parking lot of the Coliseum now. But there's that whole shopping center where the health department used to be, where River Edge is still there, and the Middle Georgia Regional Commission moved out from. So that's another potential site for development. We didn't go look at it, but is that farther down the road?
No, I think it was. It comes and goes depending on what's happening in Washington, D.C. But I think that entire site, we're looking for River Edge to move out. I think the first quarter of 2026, maybe the second quarter of 2026. We have plans for a new project that will take up that entire piece of property there. So we'll see how that shakes out in the next several months, and we hope for a $350 million project there, up to 250, 300 jobs. So I think it's going to be very exciting what happens there. We just got to continue to navigate the federal, changing guard, as well as things going on in the national. We can't really control ourselves here locally.
Also on that tour, Commissioner Ray Wilder asked about the debt that the county is still carrying from prior administrations. What kind of things are we still paying tens of millions of dollars for?
Well, it's really hard to tell. It's 2010, 11, 12, 16. A lot of times when debt would come up previously, they would turn around and refinance that debt. It could be for 2nd Street Corridor. It could be for the Marriott Hotel, things like that. Some of those have funding sources and some of them do not. We've only taken on 2 new bonds since we've been here the last 5 years, and both of those bonds have funding sources. One is the venue at the mall, or the amphitheater. It has its own funding source. And of course, the other one is going to be the FBO at the airport that has its funding source as well. So really no new debt that any taxpayers will have to be responsible for.
Any updates on potential work for the courthouse from the 2018 SPLOST?
Yeah, we've got our architects and engineers over there now to see how that money is best spent. They'll be making a recommendation to myself and the commissioners probably in the next 6 months. Wouldn't think that it will be completed probably till the next fall as far as any work that may be done at the very earliest. But I think we're going to be able to save some money inside there to help pay some debt, old debt that we have there, but it's just still a work in progress.
You have the opportunity to ask questions of Mayor Lester Miller. We do have one from John Montgomery. John wants to know what can be done about people passing other people at excessive speeds. He says they're in the center lane. Sometimes they pass several cars at the same time, and it happens a lot on Forest Hill Road and Napier Avenue.
Well, that's a good question. I think encourage people to follow the law. Most of the times they're doing an illegal pass, and that situation happens, whether they're going too far in the middle lane or whether they're passing on the double lane. Of course, that's always a patrol issue, and I think having more patrols in those areas. I'd say contact the Sheriff's Department, let them know particular areas that are happening. Perhaps they can beef up security there. The Sheriff's been pretty good about that when he gets knowledge of that, but just don't assume that everyone knows that. We just got to take personal accountability for ourselves to make sure we're doing right and obeying the laws. And certainly that all comes with, having a driver's license, being mature about it, being an adult, and teaching our young drivers how to do the same.
Of course, school's out for summer, so I guess that means the school speed zone cameras won't be functioning again until August. Is that your understanding?
That's my understanding.
Okay. Now, Jamie Road wants to know, what is Mayor Miller going to do about Vineville Avenue?
Mayor Miller is going to do whatever the GDOT tells Mayor Miller to do.
I thought that's what your answer would be.
We'll have some input there. Right now, I believe that they're leaning toward having just one lane both ways and having the middle lane being used as a turn lane only. They'll make those recommendations to us in the next several months. Those lights are a little bit outdated, antiquated, and they're having a hard time getting those lights and maintaining those lights. But we're doing some of the work there, but it's a GDOT project from the Georgia Department of Public Safety. We're going to let them drive that, but we'll give input where we can. But I think that's the current plan.
Of course, we also hear a lot of feedback and get a lot of persistent information when it comes to the Spring Street exit of Interstate 16 and the way the unhoused folks just kind of sit up under that underpass. There's always a lot of garbage and that. What can GDOT do? Because that's their responsibility, right, in that area, to keep that clean during all that construction.
Well, we've actually went out there and cleaned that probably 100 times in the last 4 years ourselves. People don't understand the law. I think there's some state ordinance when you're on their property there that you can, if someone's there camping out, if that's the term they use for camping, doesn't have to be for any specific amount of time. You certainly can have them move there and perhaps give them a citation. But honestly, until that overpass is complete and the work's been done there probably the next 16 to 18 months, it's very hard to enforce. You've only got one way across there. And certainly that's it's been a challenge for a while. I know it's going to get better as soon as we have both the Renaissance on the River project as well as that interstate being completed there. A lot more easily manageable property there. Code enforcement is going to be doing some natural patrolling through that area there with the ATVs that we got, but you can't navigate those safely right now with all the construction going on. So I think you'll see a lot more enforcement there. We continue to help people out through our Brookdale Resource Center and all the other partners we have. So we are making a dent and those that are experiencing homelessness, and we're going to continue to do that. But that's just a log jam right there, that particular area, and it's one of the first things people see coming to the community. Also, I think when the interstate gets through, 2nd Street will be your new entrance there. You won't have that problem there when you come off the interstate there, so that'll probably lighten the load as well.
And also these urban campsites that you mentioned, they keep popping up. Even Governor Gavin Newsom from California wants the municipalities to outlaw them. So what can be done under our current laws? We've seen them cropping up on that Renaissance property again.
Well, it really depends on where folks are at. If it's property that we own, of course, we can handle that, and we have been doing moving encampments. But what we try to do is we try to get out and do some resources first to make sure people have options, whether it's Brookdale again or somewhere else, or get our faith-based group involved and our homeless coalition involved. When it's on private property, we need the permission of the landowner, so we need to know who owns the property. They're supposed to take steps to secure their own property where they can ask for assistance. They do so. We moved them. We've thinned out the number of people in those, and of course, some of those folks have been people that are hiding out from, from charges they have pending for them. So some of them have went on to go to jail or other communities which they're probably from anyway.
We know other folks either have some sort of mental issue or maybe substance abuse thing. River Edge is building some new facilities in our community, and they also have proposals for 2 new group homes that they'll be coming to the county for money. So how can we keep up the demand for this type of housing?
Well, I think everybody's working together right now in collaboration to keep up with the demand. Our Affordable Housing Fund is getting a lot of good projects starting now with a good director there, and I look forward to continuing to do that. River Edge has been a great partner. They do have those facilities coming on board probably another year out at least before we do that, and they'll be able to help people. But everyone just has to keep doing their job and working together. We'll look at some infrastructure money from the state or from the federal to help us out there as well. We really would like some of that government surplus that we have in the state of Georgia to go to facilities. Put our money where our mouth is. I'm supposed to get a $500 rebate check, I think, in from the state for taxes I paid for last year. I'd much rather them keep that money and put it toward, a really good Central State Hospital type facility that we could go ahead and take care of on the front end, because we're paying for it both in life and people being incarcerated and being on the street in the long end.
Our CCJ director, Debbie Blankenship, was talking to some people who regularly use the parking garage, and they say quite often there's human feces in the stairwell. So why don't we have a public restroom downtown?
That's a good question. I think we have enough businesses there. It's just monitoring them and keeping them clean and making sure they don't become havens for crime. Sometimes they have options and still don't use them. If we have them open, the facilities at Central City Park, Clayton Park, we still have that same challenge. We're starting to put cameras in our parking decks as well, so some of them have them, some of them do not, so they're going to be more secure. But that's a good question. Maybe it's something we can look at in the future once we get these other hotels, other things that's coming downtown to be built. But at the same time, you're not trying to encourage anyone to live out in the open and have to use a facility out there. You want people that patronize these restaurants to be able to use those restrooms there.
Last month, we took a question from Trey Knight about overcrowding in clubs. Trey says, what's been done since last month? And of course, we did have the shooting at Midtown Daiquiri Bar and Grill. Did that have anything to do with crowds that you know of?
No, I think that's, if you trace that particular situation, retaliation situation, I think it's what it's going to end up being. For the last several years, you're going to see that it's been a back and forth for quite a while on that one particular incident there on Anthony Road, and all that's probably linked together. Typically, I don't comment on items that are under investigation, but it didn't have anything to do with overcrowding bars. But I think they're going to continue to. We've talked to the fire department, and the sheriff knows it's on the radar to make sure that we all do our job to make sure that we don't have a dangerous situation inside the clubs. This particular situation may have had some knowledge of certain people inside the club by people that were in there that ended up spilling out into the parking lot and someone knowing there. So I think it's just a crime of opportunity, and certainly we're going to be looking at that situation over the next 60 to 90 days.
Seems like in the summer season that crime and violence have an uptick. Is there anything special being done to calm things down this year?
Well, we've had a fairly quiet year from Macon-Bibb County standards. As I mentioned previously, Houston County is at 10 homicides this year. Macon-Bibb County is at 9 or 10 homicides, which is down some 70% from just a couple of years ago. We have in the past, we've had a history when graduations happen, people just, they celebrate and they get into altercations. And of course, when the summer, it gets a little hot outside, and in the time you can stay out longer. Kids are not in school, not a lot of school activities going on. Some of our teens kind of get riled up, but most of these have not been teens necessarily. It's been mostly adults, 25 years to 35 years old. So it's just something we have to manage every summer, and we kind of hope to keep things down with the program that we have in our Macon Violence Prevention Program. But we're way ahead of the schedule where we were a couple years ago, so we're still headed in the right direction.
We're unofficially in the summer season. Memorial Day kicks it off, and meteorologically, we've got June 1st coming up. So what is your favorite summer activity? Let's go light first.
Go light? Whew. Well, I still like to go to ball games. Macon-Bacon's coming up, so I get an opportunity to go there, watch some good collegiate baseball. That's certainly going to be one thing that I do. Like going swimming, going to the lake out at Tobesofkee and other places. So I think we'll usually hit that a few times before we try to take a little mini vacation somewhere to the beach.
Since we last spoke, there was a public meeting out at Lake Tobesofkee about planned developments there, planned enhancements. You attended that meeting. Were you surprised by any of the public comments? What was the general overall atmosphere?
Well, I think I was unable to attend that meeting. We had about 4 different things going on that evening. Regional Commission, OMPPI. I mean, we had, but Raymond Wilder, the commissioner for that district, mostly in that area there, was there. We had Dr. Moffitt was there, several other of our county employees that I was keeping moment by moment questions on. Some folks there that about 80% of the people there seem to be very supportive, asking great questions. There's always about 10 or 20% that, love to have a project just not in my backyard kind of a thing. So I think it's very preliminary what we're looking at. Someone's willing to make a $25 million investment so our taxpayers don't have to. It doesn't create any undue burdens on our taxpayers here because they would still enjoy the great and low rate they have, but it gives us a chance to improve the facilities we have, make it more attractive, to give the whole county a benefit, both financially and aesthetically. This group is a very prominent group that's well financed. They also care about nature, which is always good to protect the environment, and will take steps necessary to make sure that we do that, including part of the money going into a conservation fund to use for our community.
Have you had any follow-up conversations with Lovejoy Capital about their perception and what happens next?
The same. I think we'll work out some interim contract in the meantime to kind of get further in the process. This is more exploratory in the very beginning to get feedback, public engagement. Next, it'll move on to the finances. You know, how much is it going to cost them? What the numbers look like? Is it going to be something feasible? Can they add some things basically that people ask for there? Take away some things. You know, a lot of people are talking about, you know, the silt in Lake Tobesofkee. Well, you know, there's certain responsibilities as a person that lives on the lake to do those things when the water is down, and certainly, but some of the money could be used to upgrade those types of things for dredging and other things. So I think there's a lot of great conversations going on. I think we'll have a preliminary contract for consideration, whether I sign it myself because it's not binding on the county, or whether we bring it forth to commission at a later time. So I think we'll move up to the next stage of that. In other communities, it's taking them probably 3 to 6 months to do that, so I could expect that the next thing to happen.
Unfortunately, we also had a drowning and 2 other youngsters were hospitalized at the same place where a Macon-Bibb County fire recruit drowned, saving 3 people, 3 youngsters a few years back. So that's not a beach area. It's right there off the bridge on Mosley-Dixon, and you know, there's like ducks and such. So what can be done to keep those non-swimming areas safe?
I don't know if anything else can be done, to be honest with you. I certainly don't want to cast dispersions on someone who's lost their child. I know it's a very serious situation. We have plenty of signs there that said no swimming. Everybody knows you're not supposed to swim there. You know, whether it looks shallow, but boats come through there all the time, going underneath the bridge and overpass there. We just got to educate people, make sure they follow the law, and you know, be a little bit more diligent about making sure they don't, you know, stay out there. But you can't go back and just make up a bunch of laws and reinvent the wheel when you have an incident like this. You can learn from the mistakes and see if there's some things you can do, low-hanging fruit to address those things. But really, people are going to have to be accountable for following the law and doing what they're supposed to do, and hope this situation doesn't repeat itself again.
Now we're turning to blight. It seems like it's been a subject. It doesn't come up as much anymore because we see progress being made. But Jay Wright wants to know, what's the status of the old Jesse Rice Elementary School? A few years ago, the school system sold that school and the Neal Academy on Hollis Road in Hightower for some sort of housing. I haven't seen anything yet. Do you know, is that just stalled?
Well, I'm pretty sure they sold the properties, both properties, to a third party who are trying to go through the process. Still, they're in a challenging environment with getting materials and laborers and things like that. So you'd have to ask the school system, but really I think the only folks that are responsible for this at this time is the owners of it.
Well, that's all the time we have. Thanks for joining us.